Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi. Barely getting the start off. Sorry about yesterday, but you're going to see what was happening yesterday. So I had family town in recently, and we're new driving sim in 2023. So here I am on the road to the airport. One of the things I can tell you about the United States, it's very unique. Every country, most countries have the ability to drive in them, but in the United States, we're such a big country. And after the 50s, when they expanded the interstate highway system, I can't tell you how many times I've been across the country, up, down, left, right, throughout the country. America is a number one and foremost wear car country. And I'm not saying in Germany it's right. So in Germany, it's Mercedes and BMWs, and like the worst car there might be a Volkswagen, and those aren't the worst cars. So it's a fake mic, sorry. And so I'm not saying Germans don't love to drive, and I'm not saying there's other countries don't love to drive, but it's what we do in this country. We don't have a lot of mass transit. If you live in New York City, you can get by without a car. If you live in Chicago, maybe not as much. If you live in LA, you can't live without a car. If you live in San Francisco, you can't live without a car. And most cities that are further than the original cities, further west, you're not going to be able to survive without a car. On top of that, as time has gone on, people move out of the city where that's the economic source of an area, and they move out into the suburbs or outlying areas. It gets further and further, and you depend more and more on your car. Out east, they still might have rail in some cases, but that's not the majority of the country. I live in the Detroit area, so you can imagine that we don't have a lot of mass transit because almost everyone was related to someone that worked in the car industry, so they got car discounts, and that's part of the installed base that they sold to. So I grew up in Michigan, Motor City, and so I've always driven cars. My first car was a Volkswagen Beetle that was a hand-me-down, not American, I'm sure everyone was thrilled with that. It was my sister's car, got handed down to me. Then I had like a Pontiac Ventura. And then I had a Dodge D50, which was a Mitsubishi import truck. And I think after that, I joined the Coast Guard. So those were our cars that were either given to me by my family, and I didn't have anything to do with them. So the first car I ever bought was after the first motorcycle I ever bought. First motorcycle I ever bought. I was in the Coast Guard, as you know. I went to electronics school. I had an incident there, so I had an ACL reconstruct. I hadn't had one at that point, but I blew out my ACL and my anterior cruciate ligament. So I wasn't going to tell anybody because I didn't want to get kicked out of the Coast Guard. So I just worked with it and worked with it for years and years. So at this point, I get stationed to a ship down in Port Canaveral, Florida, which is supported the space shuttle launch. The space shuttle had exploded before that. So I was there when they first restarted the program. And I was on a ship like in the potential fallout area for that. So I was stuck on this ship, which I mentioned before. This was a smaller place, so there was no barracks for me to live in. So I had to live on the ship. And Port Canaveral, if you're familiar with that, it's a long way to get to civilization. So I needed a vehicle, so I got a motorcycle. Now, I had rode motorcycles previously. I had one in college. But this was a Honda XL 650 XL, which was an on-road, off-road, but it was a kickstart. I had never kickstarted a bike before, and it was on my bad knee. And if you've watched this channel, I've explained to you before, I'm not really good at learning. I'm not really smart, YouTube. How I learn is I have to do something over and over and over and over and over and over. Repetition for me is key for me to learn something like that. So I buy this motorcycle, so I have to bring a person along with me to kickstart the bike so I can ride the bike. So he kickstarts the bike for me. He drove me to the place. We get the bike. We go back to the ships, and we're a small 110-foot boat. We're piered next to a 210-foot boat. There's a huge parking lot. I come back. It's on a Friday night. The captain, before he left, he goes, if you crash, I'll kill you. Like, he didn't want me to get a motorcycle because they're inherently dangerous. But I have no way to get off the ship. So I get the bike, we come back. There's 2 people on watch, the officer of the day, the OD, and this guy that helped me get there. So I'm letting them, the guy who drove me to the place, so I'm going to let everyone drive the bike. I've had the bike a couple hours. In the parking lot, I'm not going to out this guy's name, but he gets on the bike. He starts it because he knows how to start it up. And it's aiming at the ship. But it's like there's a parking spaces in front of the ship, a big area, and then dual parking spaces. So it's like, you know, you have enough room. The problem with that bike was, and I'm sorry if this is too technical, it was a single cylinder, 4-cylinder, single cylinder, 4-valve, single cylinder engine, 650. Had a lot of torque, a crap load of torque. So what happened is he let off the clutch and the bike immediately, because he had a little too much throttle on it, immediately started kicking up. So he grabs harder, which turns the throttle YouTube, and he races. The ship I was on, it wasn't even commissioned yet. So when the United States buys a vessel, they contract it to a shipyard. The shipyard builds a vessel. And then you might have a boat launching, which you've seen where they launch it in the water out of the dry dock. That's one thing. But when it's officially christened, they wait for it to get in port, to the home port. They get the families and everyone. They have a big celebration, and they do the bottle thing on it. So the ship hasn't been commissioned, but we're in our home port. We're like 2 weeks away from the commissioning, or a month away. You know, we've had shakedown crews and all that stuff. This guy's, I almost doxed him. The bike is going faster and faster into the boat, YouTube. It hits the curb. It flops over. It ejects Mike, and I doxed him. It ejected him into the water. And the bike's now hanging between the pier, the land, and the ship, just teetering there. I immediately, like, I jump in the water. I should have got a gold life-saving medal, YouTube, or at least a silver. So I go in, we rescue Mike. God dang it. I'm not going to say his last name. We rescue Mike. He gets out of there. And this is normally when I tell you to like, subscribe, share, unsubscribe, resubscribe, comment when available. If you really want to comment, if you wait a couple hours, I usually fix it so you can comment. And if you want notifications, please do that. Trying to get to 500, that's a start of monetization, which I'm going to, we get seen too. So now it's a little bit better. The focus is a little bit better. And it's a different time of day, so you can see that. And now I'm coming from the airport. So we go in, we save Mike. We have a crane on the boat to take our small boat off to launch our small boat. But in this case, we pick up my bike, we get back in shore, and the forks are bent. The bike's still okay. So the OD's freaking out because he was out there too. We're all in a shit ton of trouble. So we go downstairs. I'm living on the ship now. I'm living in a room. The room's like, what, 6 feet? The room is like 10 by 10 by maybe 20. There's 6 people in there in barracks and bunks that are stacked. So he's in there. I'm on a top bunk. He's on a bottom bunk. And he starts, he had broken ribs. So he starts, the OD comes in and goes, Mike, are you okay? I'm sorry, Mark, for disparaging you. So they call the captain. Captain comes. Caesar, you are going to get squirted. You get the prize, Caesar. How dare Caesar interrupt that story? Captain finally comes. And my nickname, there's another seaman and my nickname was Biff. Captain comes in, Mike, you're all right? All right, Mike, let's take you to the doctor. Captain, the OD goes, you want me to call an ambulance? And the captain goes, you want to F up even more? I'll take him. Captain has an old Honda Civic, one of those small ones. So Mike gets up. And they walk out of the berthing area. And I'm like, Captain sticks his head back in. Biff, if I gotta go, you gotta go. So I get up and we get into the captain's car. Mike's sitting in the front. I'm hunched in the back of this Honda Civic. Over every bump we hit, Mike goes, Captain looks back at me. I'm like, F my life. FML, YouTube. Before there was an FML, Reddit, subreddit, whatever those things are, we had it. We get there. They look at him. They go, sir, there's no way we cannot keep him overnight for observation. Captain instantly turns, eyes dart at me. I'm like, F. So we get out of there. We get back. I'm going to turn that light on. Last video was too dark. Sorry about that. So I have my screen on. We get in the captain's car. We're talking. He goes, I was the attaché to the admiral at the district. I used to give him the reports of these a-holes that these things happen to. Now I have to call him and tell him I'm one of those people. Yes, sir. I'm sitting in his car. Then after a while, he turns over to me. See this bridge that's coming? They shaped them like footballs for the Super Bowl. What do you think, YouTube? Waste of money or not? He looks over and he's sincere. Well, how are you doing? How's your bike? How's everything? But like at that point, right, he's ramped me up to this thing. So after that, I had to get a vehicle now. So now I've wasted money on a motorcycle. So I get a truck, a Jeep Red Comanche. I love that truck. It was the greatest with stick shift. Greatest truck. I would buy it again. I can't find them. They're all rusty now. But it had a big engine for that. So like 125 horsepower for a truck that size was great. This is all fake, by the way. The hat's not fake. But this is a truck simulation. So we're Truck Simulation 2023 US driving the Ronin Kaiser Simulator. So I don't know why I do that voice. Sorry, YouTube. Sorry, America that's in that part of the country. Hopefully it's bad enough that it's... Now we did another transition. Now I'm in Detroit. So I wanted to share a little bit of how Detroit looks. This freeway is cutting through Detroit, the downtown area. So we ride back. I get the truck and everything's okay. But that's when I became part of America, where I have a truck payment, a car payment, and that freedom being in that vehicle, that you could just get up and go anywhere. It's remarkable, especially for my generation, right? That freedom. In high school, I drove to Wyoming because I was going to maybe go to the University of Wyoming. I ran away from my house and drove to South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. On that truck, I was stationed in Florida. I used that truck. I drove up to New York in that truck. Oh, I got stationed in Detroit. And I traded in Detroit. I went 43,000 miles without ever having an oil change. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm a habitual line stepper. Red Comanche, wherever you are, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I traded in. But I love that truck. I took that truck to all my duty stations. It was great, that freedom. So one of the things about driving in the USA, you have that freedom. But... And I don't know if this is, sometimes people say the next generation isn't so keen to drive. Everyone wanted their license. When I was growing up, everyone wanted their license. Number one, because you could drink liquor then. So at 18, or drink beer. At 18, no one call me, please. I'm doing important YouTube stuff. So getting your license was really important. My youngest son wasn't that. He was in no hurry to get it. And he has a lot of friends that don't drive and that kind of stuff. And I don't understand that. Even if you don't have a car, having that license, just always that possibility of freedom. And that's a different time. It's not good or bad, just different. It's just different. But I wanted to share this with you yesterday. I know I like to get you the videos every day, and I felt bad, but I was dropping people off at the airport, and that's another horrible story for another time. But it has something to do with the things I always talk about. And I love everyone in my family, so if any of you ever watch this, I love you. And I will narc on you in the future about this story, but I won't right now. It's still too fresh. The cuts are still too fresh. They got a scab over. But everyone else, you got to see Southeast Michigan during the summer. I would argue this part of the country, there's 9 months a year. It's not that great. It's meh. But during the summer in Michigan, because of the fresh water, if you live near the water, that's always a plus. If you live near fresh water, that's a double plus. If you near fresh water that's continually moving, like rivers and big lakes and that kind of stuff, with no crocodiles or alligators or snakes, that's really good too. So that's what's great about the Great Lakes for 90 days out of the year. The other ones, there's a lot of other places. And maybe we'll talk about those other places in a different video, but different video. So I wanted to share that with you, YouTube. Thanks. My apologies for not doing this. So I'm going to do 2 today. So after I do this and post this, in media sante, let you rest assured that I am working on another video for 4:30. If I can make it, I better get humping YouTube. Talk to you soon. Bye.